Okay, so we're all set. Hi guys, welcome to this. I'm from the Academic Resource Center here just to talk to you a little bit about some strategies you can use, some things that you've already taken probably from your previous college experiences and ways we can adapt it and things that we can use here at Duke. And also just tell you about our services. So hopefully you'll come and visit us anytime during your Duke experience. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint for you guys, but I also do not want, to lecture at you. So I really would love this to be discussion based. So at any point you have questions, it's a little bit harder for me on Zoom, but go ahead and throw it in the chat, or even better, take yourself off mute and just say, hey, Andrea, interrupt me. I don't mind. I'd love to have questions and things like that. So, and I want to make sure this is directed towards you all and I'm giving you information that works for you. So today I'm going to talk about Learn Better, Think Smarter. Again, just some strategies that you can use in your courses to be successful and to also not be overwhelmed, anxious, all those type of things, and enjoy your Duke experience. My name is Dr. Andrea Merritt. I am a learning consultant at the ARC, and I also run SAGE, which is what I'm going to talk about now. I just quickly want to go over some of the programs that we offer through the Academic Resource Center, or ARC, or ARC. You'll hear us called multiple things. Just want to let you know that this is a service for all Duke students. It is free of charge, well, part of your tuition, and it is available not just for students who maybe aren't feeling great about an organic chem class or a math calc class. It is for students who maybe they're doing awesome in all their courses, but are feeling incredibly overwhelmed. How do I balance research, my job, pre-med activities, whatever it is, and my courses? We work with students on all aspects of academics. One of the things that we do offer real quick are learning consultations. These are like an academic coach. This is your team to help you get through your academics. It's a one-on-one meeting with a learning consultant. It can be 30 minutes or 1 hour. At the moment, all of these are virtual. So we are virtual this semester, which actually makes it much easier. It's really easy to get in touch with us. You don't have to come across, because we're normally on East Campus. And so this has actually worked really well. Have a lot more appointments because students can just pop in much easier. And here I talk with students about all aspects of their academics, just what I was saying, test anxiety, whether it's MCAT studying. I do a lot on learning consultations on how to prep for the MCAT. I do all sorts of things. And we have generalists, we have people who work with more ADHD students. We have people who are history PhDs, and then STEM like me. So we'll work with all sorts of students from all different classes. We also have peer tutoring. This is mostly for first and second year type courses, sort of our general math, calc, the bio or chemistry courses, and foreign languages. But we offer a few upper levels as well, so definitely check it out. It is group tutoring, so group tutorial. So 3 to 5 students with a peer tutor to go over concepts. We offer SAGE in bio, math, and chemistry. These are learning communities, so a little bit more than just a study group. It's a group that you can be with throughout the semester in a particular course for resources, mentorship, and content review. This is a really cool thing. And so I do want to just mention Study Connect. This is our most informal study group. It's just a way that you can figure out how to find people in your class to arrange a study group. Great for the fall semester where we're virtual, so that you can kind of compare notes, ask each other questions, go over content, things like that. So check that out on our website. We offer LD, HDHD support as well. And then as I mentioned, we have test prep. So MCAT and GRE test prep. So any questions on any of those activities or programs, yeah, definitely stop me and let me know. So with this, I'm going to talk a little bit about some high-level strategies. These are things that you may find in a learning consultation or a learning community. We're just going to talk about big picture ideas for some strategies to help you study and prep for exams. And then we'll talk a little bit about how important sleep, and I've got a memory game to talk about memory. And then a big thing we do is time management. So we'll talk a little bit about priorities and task and time. And then I have a game. If we have time, we'll play that. So I work with a lot of students on getting their tools for their toolbox and figuring out all these different things that we can do in order to be successful in your class. So memories and strategies we just talked about, but metacognition, making sure you're thinking about thinking. So thinking about the ways you learn. I wish I had been a little bit better at this when I was an undergrad. I'll use some of my examples of my own experiences in some of this, but just thinking, okay, maybe this strategy isn't working. Maybe I need to switch things up and not be afraid to do that. And thinking about what are the best ways for you to learn in this specific class. Bloom's taxonomy. We won't talk too much about this, but really important that we think when we're studying, we're not just memorizing, we're not just repeating things, but we're looking at how can we analyze it and create and use this information. And again, just being aware. So I love this figure because I really want to get across to you guys that it's not a one size fits all. There's lots of different things you can do with a particular class versus the humanities versus the STEM, one person versus another. There's lots of things we can do. So if you're ever feeling stuck, that's a good time to come and talk to us. Okay, so we talk a little bit about study strategies and how we can adapt. You guys have the experience, you're here at Duke, but it's sometimes students come to Duke and we need to kind of work with how can we adapt to the courses here. You may be taking a course you've never taken, an area that you're not used to, and so how can we use some of these strategies to help you be successful? And so we're going to talk a little bit about time, active versus passive learning, what to do before, during, and after class, and a little bit on note-taking. Again, stop me if you have any questions. So in the chat, if you guys can put in sorry, I can't even read my slides. How many hours per week do you expect to study outside of class in the fall semester? So in the chat, how many hours per week do you expect to study outside of class in the fall semester? So we got 35. Anybody else want to say? That's a good number. 20, 40, 21. Yes, so we can see you guys are thinking about it. You're going to have to put some hours in. And 20, so we see an average. So it's like a job. I mean, that's outside of class. So if you're taking labs, you're taking, cut few hours a week of coursework itself, and then outside of it, you're putting 20, 30, 40 hours per week in. That's your job. That's what you're doing. It's a lot of hours. And so this is something that we do talk with students about, is about an hour of class. An hour of class is going to equal about 3 hours outside of class. So about 10 hours a week for each class. So when you guys were saying between 20 and 40, you were right on. So usually if you're taking 4 classes, it's about 40 hours per week. But again, it's going to depend on the student and on the course. But I always start out there with students to realize, yeah, you got to put in the time. And sometimes students aren't used to that. They are used to, not having to study quite as much, not having to look at the textbook. Depending on the class, you're going to have to put the hours in. This is a really busy slide. There's a lot here. I know it's hard to get everything in, but the big thing I want to show from here is just making sure as you're doing that work, that 40 hours that you have to put outside of class, that you're adding a lot of active learning strategies. So passive learning strategies are the easy ones. These are the ones that we sort of go to where we read over something, we copy it word for word, we memorize, we do the flashcards, we're taking notes on what exactly the professor's saying. Maybe we're comparing it with our colleagues in our class. So good things. We do need to read. We need to make sure we're taking notes, but we're not really thinking about the material in this sense. It's a very passive process. We're not getting into exactly what the professor's saying, what does this mean, those type of things. So really want you to make sure that you're adding to your toolbox, that you have active learning strategies in there, that you're metacognition, you're thinking about that learning. What are you learning? And so when you're taking notes, you're writing things in your own words, trying to say things out loud instead of constantly rewriting and rewriting your notes. Can you put it into a map form? Can you put it into a different type of note-taking form? Or as I just said, say it out loud, teach it to somebody. That's one of my favorite ways of learning something. You can really let your brain process that information, see what you know and what you don't know. So making sure when you're taking notes that you elaborate on them, you put them in your own words, and you make those connections from past previous notes and then looking at future notes later. I'm going to talk a little bit more about note taking, so I'll leave it there. But the big item ticket that I want you to take from this is making sure you're actively involved in that learning process. You're really thinking about, what is this information? What does it mean? Students can spend way too many hours in the passive stage highlighting things, things like that. We don't have time for that. So we want to be efficient and effective in the way that we're studying. So this is something we work a lot with students on. This is, again, another busy slide, but I do want to just put in here, I'm going to elaborate on some of this information in just a few minutes. But the big thing I want to take in the study cycle is before, during, and after. So when we're thinking about studying for a class, we want to make sure that we take into account before class. And I used to be a professor of biology for a long time, and I got this question all the time from my students is, should I read the textbook? You know, what should I do before class? I get confused if I try to study too much before class. But we want to spend some time getting ready for the class so we can get the most out of the actual lecture. So before class, making sure you're looking through your syllabus. That is your contract with your professor. So much information in that syllabus. And making sure you understand how to use that syllabus. You're looking at what's coming up in the class, what are the major topics. A lot of professors here at Duke, a lot of my STEM professors I work with, put their learning objectives, even like each one for each lecture they're going to do. And that's gold. I mean, that's really important information. That's what they want you to take away from that lecture. So making sure you're reading over those learning objectives. What do you need to think about as that professor is speaking? So just 10 to 15 minutes, look over the chapter, look over the main keywords, definitions, so that when you're sitting in that class, you can focus, you can be engaged, and you're not just letting it go over your head or zoning out. So during class, here we want to do effective note taking. This is so important and will save you so much time when you move on to your actual studying. I'm going to have a couple of slides on this in just a second, so I'll leave it just there, but we're going to talk a little bit about being engaged and focused on the actual lecture. That was another thing that I tended to do when I was an undergrad. I was a biochemistry major, and I'd sit in my chem courses and I would take furious notes and really didn't know what the professor was saying. I was just trying to get it all down. And then I would go back to my dorm and I'd have to learn it all myself. And it would take way too much time. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we can really be engaged during lecture and get the most out of that 1 hour, 1 hour and a half hours, depending how long the lecture is, so that your studying is more efficient. After class, making sure you're looking over your notes. We'll talk more about that. And asking questions, making sure you're talking to your TA, your colleagues in your class, the professor, things like that. And then we'll talk a little bit more about studying, making sure you're practicing. That's huge in STEM. Do practice problems. Humanities, can you pull concepts together? And then you're ready for the test, and we'll talk a little bit about how to relieve some of that anxiety and be ready for it. So this is the item that we talk so much with our students, is just kind of going through the study cycle. And it depends who you are, what the class is, where we really need to focus. But I did want to just put this up there to give that big overview, and then let you know that you can come talk to us at any point or ask a question now if you have one on a specific part. Okay. So as I mentioned, I was going to talk a little bit about note-taking strategies. I talk a lot about this. I have given this lecture on note-taking so many times this summer, and it's something that all students are somewhat familiar with. You've seen the Cornell method, a lot of you. You're used to doing different notes on your computer and things like that. I just want to have a conversation about it to really make sure that you're thinking about, are you doing the best method for you and for the class? And just making sure you're realizing how important this is in your study process. And as I said, from my experience as an undergrad, I was a transcriber. I would write down exactly what the professor said, and then I'd have to go back and teach myself. So we want to avoid that. So one thing I just want to mention is, can anybody put in the chat pen and paper or computer? What do you guys like to do? So what is your favorite form of note-taking? Paper, pen and paper? Oh, we got a few. Any computers out there? And I know it depends on the class, so just give me what you prefer. Okay, so just pen and paper. Oh, you guys are after my own heart. So pen and paper is definitely my favorite, but there's some advantages to computer as well. We've got a few more. Hold on, let me check this out. Maybe we've got some computers coming. We got a couple of laptops. Perfect. Okay, so we've got lots of paper out there. Writing on an iPad. Oh, yes, you can see, showing my age on that one. Tablets, of course, and tablets are a little bit of both worlds. So you're having that writing ability and the technology of saving and manipulating your work. So awesome. Okay, so advantages of a computer is that it's fast. I mean, if your professor is someone like me who talks kind of quickly, a computer is a good thing. You can also manipulate the notes. You can move things around, you can add things. It can be neat if you really have messy handwriting, things like that. So there's definitely some advantages to having your computer. You save it, it's all right there with you as you're moving from place to place to study, or when we can move from place to place. Pen and paper, one of the big advantages of pen and paper, and I'm a neuropharmacologist by trade, so I have a lot of neuro in my background. So what my PhD is in is that there is really a linkage between that neuron, that synapse processing and formation with a pen and paper. So that you're firing those neurons, you're helping strengthen that connection, and you can help process and form memories with a pen and paper. So there's a real big advantage of using the pen and paper. You can put it into your own words, you can add drawings, things like that. But it can be messy if you have messy handwriting, and it can get really confusing if you're having to add things in. But depending on the course, and you can always do computer and then write some of the notes pen and paper. So you can kind of do both if you can. One of the big things, and this is silly, I know you guys know it, but listen. It's really easy, especially on Zoom and being an online. If you're taking all online courses, you're going to have to try to figure out what's the best way. I've got two high schoolers, or two kids upstairs, one high school, one middle school, both having hours and hours of Zoom. So I'm kind of watching them as they do it. It's hard. It's hard to pay attention and focus for all that time. But even in lecture halls, it can be really hard. So just finding ways to help you focus and listen. Note taking allows that. So note taking keeps you on that point. It keeps you focused within the class, so you're trying to stay with that professor. Think of it as a conversation. If I was having a conversation, or you were having a conversation with your friend, you would be understanding what they're saying throughout that. You're not going to go and sit and, necessarily write down everything they say and get lost in some of that. So making sure you're listening and then writing in your own words those notes. Don't transcribe them. Find that technique that works for you. The Cornell method, there's so many methods out there, mapping method, whatever it may be. Just make sure it works for you. You don't have to have it totally neat. You don't have to be color coded. You can if you want, but make it work for you. You have holes, have spaces, is what I'm trying to say, within your notes so that you can go back and fill in. If you zone out, which is going to happen, put in there, I zoned out, so that you can go and fill that. Leave some room and then go back and fill that in. Any questions on that part? I'm going to get my last bullet in just a second, but any questions on maybe something that you do and you want to kind of see if it's going to work, or want to throw anything out there, just let me know. So my next thing is just making sure you're reviewing within 24 hours. So I'm going to come back to this, but I want to show this slide. You lose about 60% or so. We can only retain so much information. So we retain about 60% of our information after a day. So if you watch a lecture and then you don't look at your notes for 2 or 3 days, you have lost so much of that information. It's going to be very hard to go back and figure out what your notes are saying. Please try to review your notes within 24 hours. That doesn't mean you have to spend 3 hours on those notes, but at least read them, fill in the gaps, make sure you have what questions you have on that, and you get the big understanding. And then as you can see in this, if you review them often, so that, repeated stimulus and things like that, you'll be able to retain that information and you'll be able to form a memory. So just making sure you review within 24 hours and then keep reviewing it, keep reading it, and trying to understand it, test yourself, do practice problems. This will help retain that information. And we call this the memory curve or the forgetting curve, whether you want to look at it half glass half full or empty. But that's one of my biggest pieces of advice is I always tell my students, review within the first 24 hours of your lecture. So just to summarize, so rework your notes if you need to, summarize in your own words. Do you have questions? Fill those gaps in. And then try to connect it. Try to connect those notes to something else from a previous lecture. That's moving up that Bloom's taxonomy. We're moving, not just memorizing. We want to really understand this material. So that's all I have to on studying, my study strategies. A lot of note taking here. So let me stop for just a second and see if there are any questions. And again, it can be just to throw out maybe a technique that worked for you, or any other questions that you may have. Okay, and then we get to the assessments. So exams and things like that, always nerve-wracking, especially that first exam that you're gonna have is always the tricky thing. Again, another really busy slide. Just wanna show a few things on here and kind of highlight, and then I can sum it up. So before, during, after, you can see a theme we have on looking at strategies. So this is whilst you're actually there. This is not studying. This is, you know, right before the test, during the test, and after the test. So as you're studying for the test and you're looking at it, make sure you know what's on the test. Make sure you understand the format, the length. Is it multiple choice, essay format? Especially when you're working with online. You probably have experience from this from last semester at another institution, but make sure you understand, what are my rules? What am I allowed to look up? What am I allowed not to look up? How much time do I have? Do I have to, you know, scan it and then get it in? The more you know, the more relaxed you'll be during the actual exam. So really try to collect all that information. Don't be afraid to ask a TA or a professor or a colleague or friend. Studying with somebody. I run SAGE, so I run learning communities and things like that. I'm a big proponent. We have Study Connect, so we can help you find that person to study with. So form a study group. What you can tell them what you know, they can help tell you what you may not know. Get tutoring if you need to. Ask questions to the TA or the professor. Duke is incredibly full of resources. There are help desks, there are TA office hours, professor's office hours. Use them. Don't be afraid to go out there and ask questions. Prep for the exam. Try to simulate the exam, the timing of it, you know, things like that. So that you're not going to be in a time crunch. So we have like physics. I get that a lot with some of the physics exams. I didn't have time to get to the questions. If that's going to be the case, then when you're prepping for the exam, put yourself under that time constraint. See if you need that. Maybe you need to do more practice problems. Another resource at Duke you'll find is there are a lot of old exams. Professors will actually give old exams. That's an amazing resource. Go through those old exams. It's not going to be exactly the same, so be ready for that. But if you're having trouble with it, you need to go back through that content. During the exam, lots of things I can say. Certain STEM courses, maybe some dates in humanity, you may want to do a mind dump. You just want to put some, don't be afraid. Online, it'll be a little different. If you have a piece of paper next to you, jot those things down. Don't be afraid to write on the actual exam. Budget your time. If you're getting stuck on something, move on. If you need to move to the back where the essays are, go towards those if you need it. Multiple choice. Oh, I work so much with multiple choice. If I have any bio people out there, the Gateway Bio classes, sort of the Bio 210, 202, they love multiple choice. This comes across in lots of different classes, and it really stumps students. They're hard. So there are definitely some tactics that we can go through on making sure that you look at that question and you really try to get all the information out of that question before you move to those answers. There's lots of things we can do to help you with different test taking strategies. Then after it, make sure you look through it. See what you did. Was it a time issue? Was the content issue? I have gone through lots of old, previous exams with students and to kind of figure out where were they getting stuck. And so those are sort of my before, during, and after test taking strategies. Questions on that? And there's just some, looking at before things I said, making sure you're doing the problems, active learning, guys. So readings, assignments, practice exams, get help if you need it. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, I'm going to skip that and I'm going to go to this because I want to get to some of the fun stuff because I feel like I'm lecturing a bit much for this. But any questions on test prep, just put it in the chat or go off mute. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about memory. Two things I want you to get from memory is we lose. We have a forgetting curve. So as I mentioned, after 24 hours, we forget about 40%, retain about 60%. You'll see different numbers, but it's a lot. We need to make sure that we're repeating it and often. It's a neuro item, filling up those synapses, which are connections between neurons. We're making those stronger. So I have a little activity for you guys to do. So here we go. So I'm going to give you about 45 seconds or so. And I'm going to give you a list of words. And I want you to count the vowels, and you can see the vowels there on the next slide in these words. So 45 seconds and count the vowels. And I'm going to ask you on that in 45 seconds. So you guys ready? So 45 seconds, count the vowels. Okay, go ahead. So my question for you is, how many words or phrases from the list do you remember? So you can take yourself off mic. I love that. Or put it into the chat. But do you remember 5 words? Do you remember 7? Can anybody remember any of the words? Don't tell me the words yet, just how many? Nada. I love it. Yes. Okay, 7. Very good. Does that frustrate any of you? You can put yes or no in there. So my next question, does that frustrate you? I hope it did. It frustrated me. Why would it frustrate? Yeah, I had some, yes, yeah. So I had a unhappy face. So that probably would frustrate me. It may have frustrated you because one thing I had said something about vowels, but then one of my questions was how many words or phrases from the list do you remember? Okay, so now you know that. How many words or phrases from the list do you remember? We're going to look at it again. And I want you to look at the list and tell me if you notice anything. And as soon as you notice something, if you want to say it out loud or put it in the chat, okay, just let everybody know what we can notice from this list. Do you see a pattern? So dollar bill, dice, tricycle, 4-leaf clover, a hand. Anybody notice a pattern? Counting up. Yep. So it's associated with a number. Okay, now have a look at it. I give you not quite 45 seconds, but now look at it. Okay, now how many words or phrases from the list do you think you can remember? I'm not going to ask you to say it out loud, so don't worry. But let me know how many you think you could do if I did ask you. 13, awesome. Anybody else? Okay, so definitely you probably could remember more. So two things I want to show off of this. One is not really to do with memory, but making sure we know what's on the exam. So I know I had said, look at the vowels, but making sure you really do check with what is going to be on this assessment so you're studying the right thing. This is just an example. When you study the wrong thing, how much that content can be very different and how answering those questions can be really difficult, even if you studied really hard. But if you weren't studying quite the right thing, you're not going to do well in the assessment. So that's one thing I want to show from here. But the other thing is getting back to memory. Couple of things to think about with memory is when you can associate it with something, it's really easy, it's much easier to form a hook. We call it a hook with our memory, and just forming a stronger processing between those neurons and forming that memory. And so being able to associate it to something else helps form that memory. So here we were looking at a counting system. So we were going up one for each of these phrases. And so that was able to associate it with a number. You were able to memorize a list of 14, 13, 12, 10, whatever it may be. If they were random words, that could have been a lot harder. So being able to associate something, form a pattern, will help with memory. Also repeating it. Some of you may have kind of said it a couple of times. That repetitive pattern will also help form memories. So just some things to think about as you're working towards studying. Okay, almost done, and then I have a game for us. So here, again, this pulls in my neuro love is sleep. I talk a lot with students about sleep. One thing I just want to say, I talk to a lot of students about eating as well. So eating properly to feed your brain, the better your brain feels, the better learning, and it's easier to study. If you were thinking about your diet and you just ate horribly during the week, you were really, really busy, you're just grabbing whatever you could to eat, and you told yourself, it's okay, I will make up for it on Saturday, I'll eat all salads all day. That doesn't really feel as natural, or doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. If we just ate poorly for 5 days, a day of salads isn't really going to make up for it. Same thing with sleep. We can't just make up sleep on the weekends. We need to really make sure that we're having a good sleep patterns throughout the week, not just catching up 12, 14 hours on a Saturday or whatever it may be. There is a lot of neuro to this, so the brain will actually form more memory and connections as you sleep, so it's helping with that learning process. It also helps remove toxins. There's a lot of awesome new research coming out. There are toxins around those neurons, around in that cerebral spinal fluid. Removing some of those toxins out has actually been associated with other diseases and things like that. So the better sleep patterns we can have, the better learning and the better memory formation. So I always sound like a mom when I'm coming out and saying this, but do make sure that you're getting a good amount of sleep. It will actually make the learning process so much easier. So doing an all-nighter and cramming that stuff into your brain is actually not the best way to do it, which you know, but just a good reminder. And then our classic thing that we talk about a lot with students is time management. I know you guys have your awesome calendars. Students come to me and they just have color-coded calendars on their laptops, or they bring their agenda and it's just amazingly done. But just make sure that you're processing that information. I think sometimes some of my students spend more time putting that to-do list together than really thinking about it or doing the to-do list. One of the big pieces of advice I have for you with time management is prioritizing. Make sure that you understand what is I need to get done today. What is, making sure that I can get what I need to get done this week. So prioritizing is very important. And that may be, or it will be, your extracurricular activities, your life, everything else that's happening in your life, along with your academics. And something at the ARC that we really do work with students is the entire Duke experience, not just that class, but all your classes, your research, your sororities or fraternities or whatever clubs that you're involved in. It's a lot that you're taking in, a lot that you're doing. And so just kind of being able to balance all of that. So making sure you're prioritizing, that you're doing your to-do list. And actually, again, you can see I've got a theme here, writing it out will really help with that processing. So your brain, it's not just all kind of jumbled up here, but get it out on your computer or on a piece of paper so that you can think about what is it that I need to do. And that's something that we work with a lot with students. I'm happy to go through that some more. Okay, any questions before we get started on a game? So I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can see my gallery view and see you all. And do you have questions on maybe a study strategy or an academic piece here at Duke that I can help you with? Hopefully you're all awake because I don't see any faces. Okay, if not, then we're going to see how much you do know. So we're going to play a little game, and it's one that I know you're probably familiar with. Especially if you are from the States. I know a lot of schools have been doing this in the past. So we are going to play a Kahoot game. So I'm going to share my screen again. And I'm going to end my slideshow and pull up my Kahoot. So if you're not familiar with Kahoot, you'll need your phone. So if you don't have one, you can do this on your computer as well, or your phone, but hopefully we'll all be able to play. And so I'm just gonna get us logged in here. Okay, so you need to go to kahoot.it. So don't forget that .it, don't go to kahoot.com, but you need to go to kahoot.it. Or if you have the app, you can go to the app. There's your game pin and log on in. Thanks, Felix. So give just a couple more minutes, but if everybody can log on in, and we'll get started, and we will see how we do on this. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started so we can get going. Okay, so here's a trivia on some of the things that we talked about and some things to think about as you're doing your classes. So which study skill is least effective? So go ahead on your phone or the computer, press the one that you think. So reading in advance of class, recopying your notes, or actively reviewing after class, which is least effective? All right, so you guys did awesome. So yeah, we don't want to really recopy your notes. Some students enjoy doing that. Just make sure that it's active and you're thinking about it. We may be writing it in your own words, but it can be very time consuming. So watch out for that. Okay, good job. We've got GC, Felix. Yes, you guys are awesome. Let's see what we can do. Okay, approximately how long should I study outside of class for every hour spent in class? 30 minutes, an hour and a half, 60, or 2 to 3 hours? Oh, I knew you guys get this one. Good job. So yeah, we've got 2 to 3 hours for every hour we're in class. Okay, oh, got a little movement on the leaderboard. Okay, true or false? I should skip reviewing my notes after class and go straight to studying for a test. So don't review your notes. Yeah, good job. So we definitely want to review them, and we want to review them pretty quickly after class. Ah, we've got someone with a streak, so good job. The most effective study strategy is, so here's effective study strategy. Do we want to reread the chapter, highlight, quiz yourself or cram before exam. Good job. You guys know this. Very good. Got a little change. Oh, got a little movement there. Which strategy is not recommended for textbook reading? Now, we didn't get into this too much, but what is not recommended? Read the chapter summaries first, so you get an idea of what the chapter is about. Scan the key words, maybe before class. Use formatting clues to identify important ideas. Or you have to read the whole chapter from start to finish. You can't mix it up. Good job. I was trying to help out and you didn't even need it. Oh, here comes Emily. Good job. We got some fast ones. Okay, so we didn't talk about this, but let's think about it. It's true or false. Scholarly papers are written for students in mind. So you're in a research class. Yep, they're going to be towards their peers, so other people in that research field. So it's tricky. And take that into consideration when you're having to read research or scholarly papers. It's going to take time. It's going to be stuff that you may not know. Good job, Felix. Okay, true or false? False. Good note-taking skills have been shown to increase retention, comprehension, and college GPA. Do we need to have good note-taking skills? Yep. Just want to re-emphasize that. It really does matter and it will help you. Do what works for you. Okay. There's Andrew and Charles up there. Social Stork 34, very good. True or false? Okay. People forget about 62%. I gave some different numbers out there, but you forget quite a bit just after 24 hours. Doesn't happen. Very good. Good job. Yeah, you got to review. Very good. You guys are doing awesome. Okay, almost done. The most important part of effective note-taking is, so what should we really concentrate? Write it neatly. You can't have messy handwriting. Review and edit your notes. Writing down every word the professor says, or organize the notes the same way all the time. Good job. So we really do want to review and edit one's notes. It's okay to be a little messy, or writing down everything the professor says can be time consuming, and you're going to organize it differently for different classes, and that's okay. Oh, some movement here. Felix is still winning. Last question, and this one is worth double the points to see how you can do. This one's about the ARC. Which one of these is not offered at the ARC? So we have peer tutoring, meditation, learning communities, and learning consultations. Yep, we don't offer meditation. I'm happy to meditate with you if you need in a learning consultation, but not one of our offerings. But the Wellness Center does have amazing, even online meditation, so I definitely recommend. So let's see who are our top three. So Andrew, good job, number 3. PT, number 2. And Felix, number 1. You guys are awesome. Everybody did so well. Very good. Okay, so I'm just gonna, sorry, I'm gonna have to turn off my music so we don't have that in the background. But also just thank you guys for playing along with me. It just emphasizes some of the things that we love to talk about in the ARC. I know a lot of this is things you're familiar with, note-taking, you know how to study, you're here at Duke, you've made it this far. But if you ever feel like, okay, what I've been doing isn't working, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to change things around. I think that's something that I really wish I had done. I learned more when I was in graduate school, when I had different types of classes and things like that. So just don't be afraid to come and seek help if you need it. Even if it's not that you're doing poorly in class, but maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed. We're here to support you so that you can be successful in all your courses. And that's all I have for my lecture portion, which did end up being sort of a lecture type style. I want to open the floor if there are any questions or anything that you guys would like to talk about. Any of our services that we have, you can ask questions on how to book an appointment, test prep, if you're any of you are GRE or MCAT, anything I can help with. Well, if you guys are good, I want to be really respectful of your time. And I know there are a couple of your facilitators on here that may have some other words that need to be said to you before we let you go. So I'll leave it open for them if they do. And if you do have questions, please feel free to send me an email. Your Casey and Stephen, and they are they can get you my email. Also look at arc.duke.edu, but come on by and see us if you need to. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have one question in the chat.
Oh yeah. If a student is pre-law and pre-med, when should they reach out to those deans and advisors? I honestly would start reaching out early. Your first semester, it's always good. So I can talk a lot about pre-health because I work very closely with the pre-health office. And I also run the MCAT prep sessions. So reaching out to pre-law, whatever it may be, but talking to those advisors. They're special advisors for pre-law. We do have a pre-health advising office. You'll be assigned, if you've checked that you're interested in pre-health, you'll be assigned to a pre-health advisor. And I would start talking to them soon because you want to make sure that you're taking the courses that line you up for the MCAT and line you up for med school or law school and the LSAT. So yeah, start talking to people soon. And we also have some peer programs, so you can start talking to the colleagues and seeing what's worked well for them and what hasn't. So definitely start that soon. It depends on the graduate school. So the question was, are there advisors that are interested in grad school? Yeah, so you can talk to lots of departments in the overall look of grad school. So we are very happy to talk with you in advising. So the Academic Advising Center, we have directors of academic engagement, DAEs, that are responsible for, and that's the advising office, which is a different office than us, but they are happy to help you in looking at what are some possible graduate programs. And so the advising office is really good to go there. The Career Center will actually work a little bit with graduate programs and how do you do a resume and all those good things. And we'll help you with GRE or even just talking it through what maybe you're interested in and things like that. So I talk to the advising office, especially if you're early in the process. Now, if there's a grad program that you're really interested in, like public policy or whatever it may be, you could actually go towards that department and they may have some information as well. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much for presenting.
Thank you guys. I really enjoyed meeting you. I know it's hard over Zoom. It's not the same thing. I miss being able to see you guys. I've done this before with you all. Sorry we couldn't be in person, but if you need anything, definitely come by and see us.